There are things that you are probably doing, likely unintentionally, but they are keeping you stuck. They are holding you back. They are killing your happiness. And today I want to talk about some really common everyday ones that most people do. You've probably done a couple of these. You probably are doing a couple of these, like I said, unconsciously or unintentionally, or maybe you are doing all of them. I know I have done all of them. And so today I want to talk about what they are because they're sneaky and they're subtle, and we're going to work on turning them around to get you unstuck and moving forward and feeling better. If you're new here, welcome to our incredible little corner on the internet. My name is Kristina. I'm a registered clinical therapist, a researcher, a coach, and the creator of my incredible membership community, the Shift Society, that you can get more information about in the description below. I help heart-centered, go-getter humans break through the crap that is holding them back so that they can like themselves and their lives more every day. But here's the thing about these habits that I'm going to talk about in just a second here. In and of themselves, they're not that big of a deal. As one-offs, every once in a while, they're not the worst. They're not the best, but they're not the worst. But because we're unconscious to the fact that they're happening, because we're not really aware that we're doing them, they are happening quite frequently. They're happening daily, if not several times a day. And that cumulative effect, that cumulative impact is having a significant negative impact on us, on our well-being, on our happiness, on our ability to enjoy and be present and feel more fulfilled in life. And so I want to bring them into the light so that the unconscious can become more conscious, so then we can start dealing with them and working them out. And the first habit you might have that is keeping you stuck is the habit of repressing your emotions. So when something comes up, when something hits you sideways, when something triggers you or hurts you or upsets you, and an emotion comes up, you quickly shove it down. You push it down, you numb, avoid, repress it, and you think that if you ignore it, then it's just going to go away. But that's not the way that it works. So for those of you who are walking around where you feel like your emotions are about right at the surface, and any minute you might implode or explode, then chances are you have been repressing a lot of emotion. Which then leads us to the second habit that many of us have that is keeping us stuck, is the habit of acting out on your emotions. So this happens usually when we have been repressing so long that all our emotions are like, we've been pushing them down so long that now we're kind of full and our emotions are sitting right up about here, and then something happens and even something just small happens and it triggers us. And because we've got no capacity to process it, to kind of deal with that emotions because we're already full to the brim, we end up acting out, we end up lashing out, we end up doing or saying things that we regret. We end up hurting or harming another human being, or hurting or harming ourselves because we don't know what to do because we've been pushing down emotions for so long. So then what do we do then? If we're not supposed to push them down or we're not supposed to react to them, we process them. We learn how to get curious about what's coming up. We learn how to process what we're feeling and work through it and understand it, and then do something with it within ourselves. And then the next thing that ties in nicely to what happens when we're not processing our emotions is the habit of letting yourself stress too much. And I say letting yourself stress because more often than not, stress is created by our thoughts. It's created by unmet expectations. Unmet expectations about how we should be, how life should be, how others should be, how things are supposed to go, and then it doesn't meet that standard. We don't meet that standard. Others don't meet this standard. Life doesn't meet this standard. Our outcomes don't meet this standard, and then we get stressed about it. But the standard is just made up with our thoughts. And so thinking about that for a second, thinking about the things that are stressing you out, the ideas and ideals and expectations that you have, and how that life or you or others or circumstances not meeting those expectations, how that is creating your stress. And I think about the thing that often does stress me out, and that is my son. My 5-year-old son. I love him. He is an amazing kid, but he's a highly sensitive person with a strong will. And the combination of the two can be really, really challenging. And so sometimes I will start to get really stressed out because he's not acting the way that I want him to act. He's not doing what I want to do. He's maybe reacting in a way that I don't want him to react. And so I can get caught up in this drama, and I can get caught up in thinking he has to act this way. Why isn't he doing this? This is so bad. This is so wrong. Or then blame myself and be like, I'm a terrible parent. What am I doing wrong? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with him? And like get into all of this drama around it. Or I can just take a step back and be like, okay, he's having a reaction. Something's going on inside of him. And now I'm having a reaction to that because I think that maybe there's something wrong with me as a parent, or maybe I think that there's something wrong with him as a human being, instead of just being able to take a step back and be like, what is actually going on here? And what can I do with it? What can I change in this situation? How can I handle this? Because if I just sit here freaking out about what he's doing and what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, if I'm just getting all caught up in it, nothing healthy and helpful is actually going to happen, because that's what happens when we get caught in stress, is because the human being, the human brain doesn't like to be stressed. What it tries to do is avoid it at all cost, right? It tries to get out of it, or it tries to over control it. Right? When we're stressed, we try to over control things, and then we get kind of crazy and frantic and anxious and all worked up about it. And then that just usually ends up exploding into something messy. And so instead of just taking a step back and be like, here is the situation. What do I want to do about it? How do I want to think about it? Because if I can sit here and if I sit here thinking I'm so stressed out about that, this is so terrible, I can't handle this, this is too much, then I'm just going to sit here paralyzed and not doing anything, or I'm going to react and get angry because I'm so like overcome with emotion from all of this stress, instead of just saying, what's the situation? And what are some things that I can try? What are some actions that I can take? And what are some expectations that I can modify? Right? Like when I'm looking at my child, my 5-year-old child, he's not sucking on purpose. Some of the things he does, I don't like, and I find really challenging. And I'm like, oh, why is he sucking so much right now? He's not sucking on purpose. He's a 5-year-old child that has a strong will and a lot of emotions, and he doesn't know how to regulate it yet. There's a lot going on inside of him. And so if I can change my thought about it, if I can change my expectation about how he's supposed to be and who he's supposed to be, and then I can actually look at what's going on and I can figure out how to work with it instead of pushing against it. So thinking about this in situations with your life that you're getting stressed out about, when you start to feel helpless and hopeless, you're like, this is so terrible, this is so awful, what am I going to do? It's not a helpful strategy, because what that does is it causes us, like I said, to react to it or to just avoid it altogether, instead of taking a step back and being like, okay, here's the situation. What are my options? What can I do? How can I think about this differently? How can I alter my expectation first? And then how can I take productive, healthy, helpful action? The next habit that many of us have that is keeping us stuck and really, truly killing our happiness is overly criticizing ourselves. We think that being really terrible to ourselves will motivate us into positive action. We think that if we cut ourselves down, that we call ourselves down, that we berate and criticize ourselves, that we're all of a sudden going to be excited and happy and motivated to move forward. But that's just not the way that it works. Criticizing yourself and telling yourself that you're not good enough, that you're not smart enough, that you're not lovable enough, that you can't do anything right, that you're not the right body shape, that you don't have the right physical appearance, or whatever that is. This is not motivating you to move forward. It's not inspiring you to grow. If any of you have taken constructive action after criticizing yourself, I'm going to tell you that you're not taking that constructive action because you criticized yourself. You're taking it despite the fact that you've criticized yourself. So you are having to push yourself even harder through that self-criticism in order to take the healthy, productive, helpful action. Criticizing yourself never leads to anything good. It just leaves us feeling terrible, and it's optional. In the Shift Society, we are just finishing up a 2-week no self-criticism challenge. And we've been working every day on different things around catching self-criticism and thinking about things differently and treating ourselves differently. And even just this exercise, a lot of the people in there have been saying, oh my gosh, I didn't realize, now that I'm aware of this, I didn't realize how hard I was on myself. I didn't realize how much I would just sort of make these little comments or let these thoughts in my head about myself and how much I sucked. I didn't realize how much I was just letting those thoughts run rogue. That I was just letting this happen. No wonder I've been feeling so bad about myself. No wonder I've been so stuck. No wonder life has felt so hard and I've been feeling pretty bad. So even this one thing, and understanding that self-criticism, it's not necessary. It's a habit. Sometimes we picked it up. Sometimes we have these ideas and beliefs about ourselves and our worthiness and whether or not we're good enough or smart enough or beautiful enough or skinny enough or successful enough or patient enough or good enough at being like a partner or a parent or an employee or just a human being in general. Right? We've picked up these thought patterns, these habits of ways of thinking about ourselves, and we've continued them on. But they're not necessary. Which then again leads us really perfectly into the next one, which is the habit of not listening to yourself. And this is what happens when we are always criticizing ourselves and calling ourselves down and being nasty to ourselves, is that we don't trust ourselves. It's really hard to trust someone who is always nitpicking and criticizing and calling us down and finding our flaws. It would be really hard to feel safe and comfortable and trusting of another human being in our lives if that's how they were treating us. So then we wonder why we don't trust ourselves, why we don't listen to ourselves, because we have broken that trust with ourselves by how we treat ourselves. So we have this habit of not listening to ourselves, not paying attention to ourselves, not respecting our own thoughts and feelings. If something isn't okay with us, not listening to the fact that it's not okay with us, and then just continuing to go along with it and keeping ourselves in uncomfortable or unhealthy situations because we're not listening to ourselves when we know that it's not okay with us. Or taking on a project, taking on a commitment that you know you can't take on because you've already got so much going on and your plate is already full, but you think that you need to do these things to be a good person because you don't want to let anyone down or whatever the reason is, but you're not listening to yourself, to the fact that you've already got enough on your plate. And so then you take it on and then you get even more stressed out because, again, that expectation, right? Stress is coming from this expectation that I need to do all these things and take on all these things and commit to all this stuff. And so then now I'm feeling stressed because I didn't listen to myself. Or you are letting other people be the expert on you. You are listening to what other people think about you. You are listening to other people's opinions about you and not listening to and cultivating your own, not paying attention to who you are. You're outsourcing your sense of self to what other people think about who you are. And in order to truly listen to yourself, first, you have to build that trust within yourself. And if building self-trust is something that you want to do, then I have a guide for you. It's in the description below. It's called The Simple Steps to Self-Trust, and you can get that there. Also, this is all the deeper work that we're doing in the Shift Society. you can get on the wait list in the description below. We are going to be opening up registration very soon, probably just over a week from the time when this video comes out. We're going to be opening up registration again. We're going to be opening up registration to the wait list first. And so you can get on the wait list with the link in the description below. Which one of these have you been doing? Which one of them are you going to start working on now? Which one of them were you unaware that you were doing, and now you're like, oh yeah, I was doing that. And now I'm not going to beat myself up for it, right? I'm not going to criticize and judge myself for doing it because that kind of defeats the whole purpose. And that's one of the things that is keeping you stuck. Just be aware of it. Just acknowledge it. This isn't about criticizing or condemning ourselves. This is about building our awareness and our insight, because often we need that awareness and insight in order to take the constructive action. So let me know in the comment section below, which one of these are you gonna start working on? Grab the guide to self-trust. Get on the wait list for the Shift Society, like the video, share it out if you found it helpful, if you think other people would find this helpful, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, take good care.